Close your eyes for just a moment and imagine the ocean. Not the ocean you have seen in photographs, storm-tossed and gray. Not the ocean of news and weather reports, measuring wave heights and warning of distant swells. Imagine instead the ocean as it exists right now, in this very moment, somewhere far from wherever you are sitting or lying. Imagine it at its most still, in the hour just before the sun has fully risen, that luminous, suspended moment when the sky above the water shifts from deep indigo to the softest, most extraordinary shade of blue you have ever seen. Somewhere between violet and silver, somewhere between night and the first true light of morning. The surface of the water in that moment is almost perfectly flat. A few gentle ripples cross it, catching the earliest light and holding it briefly, like handfuls of scattered silver, before releasing it again. Below the surface, and this is where we are going, this is where our journey begins. The world is calm in a way that very few places on land ever achieve. The sounds of the ocean reach your ears as a continuous, shifting presence. Not loud, not sharp, a low, resonant hum that seems to come from everywhere at once, as though the water itself is breathing. We are going to spend the next 2 hours here, beneath that surface, in the world of one of the most extraordinary creatures that has ever lived on this planet. You do not need to move. You do not need to do anything at all except allow yourself to drift very gently into this underwater world. Let your body settle, let your shoulders drop, let the small tensions of the day, the ones you carry in your jaw, in your neck, behind your eyes, begin, very gradually, to release. The water is warm here, the light is soft, and somewhere in the shadows of a coral reef, something remarkable is just beginning to wake. The octopus opens its eyes. Those eyes are extraordinary things. Large, round, and lustrous, positioned on either side of a smooth, bulging head, giving it an almost panoramic view of the world around it. They look, at first glance, remarkably like our own eyes. They have a lens, they have a retina, they have an iris that opens and closes in response to light, just as ours does. And yet they are different in ways that are subtle and profound, shaped by hundreds of millions of years of evolution in a direction that is parallel to ours and yet entirely its own. The octopus we are watching this morning is a common octopus, Octopus vulgaris, a species that lives across the warm and temperate oceans of the world, from the Mediterranean Sea to the waters of the Atlantic, from the shallower bays of West Africa to the sheltered coves of southern Portugal. It is, in the language of science, a widespread and successful species. In the language of simple observation, it is breathtaking. It is resting in a small crevice at the base of a coral reef, its soft, boneless body compressed into the shape of the hollow that surrounds it, its 8 arms curled loosely around itself like the petals of an unusual flower. Its skin is currently a deep reddish brown, mottled with lighter and darker patches that mirror precisely the color and texture of the rock it rests against. It is almost perfectly invisible. If you did not know it was there, you would see only rock. But now, with the first real light of morning filtering down through the water above, it stirs. One arm uncurls, slow and deliberate, tasting the water. Then another. The mantle, the large rounded body, shifts slightly, and a current of water is drawn in through a small opening and expelled gently through the siphon, the muscular tube that the octopus uses both for breathing and for movement. The eyes, which have been partially closed, now opened fully. The pupils, strange, horizontal crescent-shaped pupils, quite unlike anything in the human face, dilate in the soft light. The octopus is awake. Take a moment, if you like, to simply breathe. There is no hurry here. The reef is going nowhere. The octopus is simply observing as you are observing it, taking in the slow transformation of the water around it as the morning light grows stronger and clearer and more golden. Small fish begin to move out from their nighttime hiding places among the coral branches. A sea turtle, immense and ancient-looking, glides past at the level of the reef's crown, its flippers barely moving. A pair of parrotfish, their scales the color of tropical fruit, circle each other in a lazy early morning spiral. The octopus watches all of this without urgency. Its skin shifts subtly, a ripple of darker color moving across its mantle from front to back, like a slow wave before settling again. This is what the octopus does, perhaps more than anything else. It watches and it adjusts. It is, in ways we are only beginning to understand, one of the most aware and attentive beings in the ocean. Before we follow our octopus out into the reef, let us spend just a moment in this quiet introductory hour to understand what kind of creature we are in the presence of. Because the octopus is not merely an interesting animal. It is something closer to a revolution, a radical reimagining of what a nervous system, a body, and a mind can be. 330 million years ago, the earliest relatives of the octopus appeared in the ancient seas of the Carboniferous period. That is a number so large it can be difficult to feel, so let us try to hold it gently. 330 million years ago, the land above the sea was a world of giant ferns and early insects and vast swampy forests, long before the first dinosaur, long before the first bird, long before anything recognizably mammalian had yet set foot on land. And already in the shallow seas of that ancient world, the ancestors of the octopus were exploring the possibilities of soft bodies and many arms, and a way of being that was unlike anything else that had ever lived. They have been here, in one form or another, for longer than we can truly imagine. And in that time, they have evolved into one of the most sophisticated forms of life on Earth, not despite being invertebrates, not despite lacking a skeleton or a spine or any of the structural features we tend to associate with intelligence, but in some curious way because of all those absences. The octopus found a different way. Today, there are over 300 known species of octopus distributed across every ocean on the planet, from the warm, sunlit shallows of tropical reefs to the absolute darkness of the deepest ocean trenches. Some are smaller than a thumbnail. One species, the giant Pacific octopus, can span nearly 5 meters from arm tip to arm tip and weigh as much as a large Labrador. They have colonized the cold, kelp-tangled waters of the North Pacific, the bioluminescent twilight zones of the mid-ocean, the sandy plains of the Mediterranean, the rocky intertidal zones of Pacific Islands. Wherever there is ocean, there is, very likely, an octopus. Our octopus this morning is leaving its crevice. One arm extends out over the coral, testing the surface, feeling for texture and chemical traces in the water. Then another. The body follows, flowing out of the crack in the rock with an ease that seems impossible for something so large, because this is the great advantage of having no bones. The octopus's body is almost entirely muscle. The only truly hard structure in its entire body is its beak, a small, chitinous structure set at the center of its arm crown, shaped like an inverted parrot's beak, sharp and strong, and used for crushing and cutting. Everything else is soft, flexible, impossibly adaptable. As it moves out into the open water above the reef, its skin shifts and ripples and changes, adjusting continuously to the colors and patterns of whatever surface it is passing over.
Now it is the brown and gold of sandy substrate. Now the pale mauve of soft coral. Now a complex, shifting pattern of cream and rust and sienna that matches the barnacled rock it is crossing. The transformation is not gradual, it is instant. It happens in less than a second. It is one of the most astonishing things in nature. We will spend much more time with this remarkable ability later in our journey. For now, let us simply move with our octopus as it begins its morning exploration of the reef and allow the world around us to come slowly, gently into focus.
The reef at dawn is a world in transition. The nighttime residents, the nocturnal fish, the feeding invertebrates, the hunting crustaceans are retreating to their daytime shelters. The daytime creatures are emerging. Schools of small chromis fish, brilliant blue, move in synchronized waves above the coral heads. A moray eel withdraws into its crevice, its muscular body flowing backwards in a single smooth motion. An octopus and an eel make uneasy neighbors. They have been locked in an evolutionary arms race for millions of years, the eel evolving a flexible body that can follow the octopus into tight spaces, the octopus evolving the ability to become, in essence, invisible. But this morning, the eel retreats and the octopus moves on. There is a quality to the light underwater at this hour that is unlike any other. It comes down through the surface in long, shifting shafts. The physicists call them Tyndall beams, these visible rays of sunlight made apparent by the particles suspended in the water. They move slowly, these shafts of light, swaying and refracting as the surface above stirs. They illuminate the reef in patches of gold and green and deepest turquoise, and in between them, the water itself seems to glow, not with any one color, but with a kind of blue luminosity that comes from all directions at once. Our octopus moves through this light like a thought through water. Let yourself sink into this image for a moment. Let the weight of it settle around you. You are drifting, unhurried, through warm and sunlit water, and ahead of you, moving with a grace that seems almost casual, is a creature that has been perfecting its particular way of being for 300 million years. There is something deeply calming about proximity to such ancient, well-developed perfection. The octopus does not hurry. It does not seem anxious. It moves with the unhurried confidence of something that knows exactly what it is and exactly how to be it.
This is how we begin. Slowly, softly, with curiosity and without agenda. We have 2 hours together in this underwater world, and there is no need to rush through any of it. Every part of the octopus's life is worth pausing over, worth looking at carefully, worth turning gently in the light to see what new facet it reveals. For now, simply drift. Watch the octopus move. Watch the reef come alive around it in the growing light of the morning. Watch the way the water holds everything: the coral, the fish, the light, the octopus, in a kind of soft, continuous suspension, as though nothing here is entirely separate from anything else. This is the ocean, and we are just beginning. There is a game that biologists sometimes play when thinking about the octopus, a thought experiment that goes something like this. Imagine you are an engineer and you have been asked to design an intelligent, adaptable, highly successful predator for the ocean floor. You have complete freedom over the materials and the structure. Where do you begin? Most people, drawing on the only examples of intelligence they know, would begin with a centralized brain, a protected, encased, well-supplied brain, positioned behind the eyes and above the spine, connected to the body by long nerve fibers that relay information back and forth. This is the vertebrate model, the model that produced fish and frogs and birds and mammals, and eventually, us. It is a good model. It has worked extremely well.
The octopus, given 330 million years of its own engineering, came up with something completely different. As our octopus moves across the reef this morning, exploring the base of a coral head with 3 of its arms while the other 5 are occupied with locomotion, balance, and continuous surveillance of the surrounding water, it is doing something that no vertebrate nervous system could manage. Each of those arms is, in a meaningful sense, thinking for itself. Let us begin with the numbers, because they are remarkable. The octopus has approximately 500 million neurons, roughly comparable to the neuron count of a domestic dog. But unlike the dog, which houses the vast majority of those neurons in a centralized brain, the octopus distributes its neural resources in a deeply unusual way. Only about 1/3 of its neurons, approximately 160 million, are located in the central brain itself. That central brain is a strange and beautiful structure, donut-shaped, wrapped entirely around the animal's esophagus so that every piece of food the octopus swallows actually passes through the middle of its own brain. It is a reminder, if one were needed, that the octopus has arrived at its intelligence by a route quite different from our own. The remaining 2/3 of those 500 million neurons, the majority of the octopus's entire neural capacity, lives in its arms. Each arm contains a large axial nerve cord running along its length, connected to a series of ganglia, and these local nerve centers allow the arm to process information, make decisions, and execute complex movements entirely independently of the central brain. When the central brain sends a command to an arm, search that crevice for prey, it sends a high-level instruction. The arm handles all the minute, moment-to-moment motor decisions itself, how to flex each section, which suckers to engage, how to respond to what it finds as it explores. The arm is not a remote-controlled tool, it is a semi-autonomous collaborator. This has a name in neuroscience: distributed intelligence, or embodied cognition. The physical structure of the arm itself is part of the computational process, and the advantage is enormous. It means the octopus's central brain is freed from the overwhelming task of directly controlling the movement of 8 complex, multi-jointed limbs with dozens of independently moving suckers each. It can think at a higher level while its arms think at a lower level simultaneously. Now let us look at those arms more carefully, because they deserve it. Each arm is composed almost entirely of muscle, specifically a structure called a muscular hydrostat, similar in principle to a human tongue. It has no rigid skeleton to push against. Instead, it generates its shape and its force through the coordinated contraction of muscles running in different directions: longitudinal muscles that run along the length of the arm, transverse muscles that compress it at any given point, and oblique muscles that twist it. By coordinating these 3 sets of muscles, the arm can lengthen, shorten, bend in any direction, and rotate, an infinite range of movement that no skeleton-dependent limb could achieve. Running along the underside of each arm, in 2 rows, are the suckers. There are approximately 200 suckers on each arm, giving a total of around 1,600 for the whole animal. Each sucker is a complex structure in itself, divided into an outer portion called the infundibulum, the cup-shaped rim that makes contact with a surface, and an inner portion called the acetabulum, which creates the vacuum when the muscles contract. A large sucker on a giant Pacific octopus can generate enough force to lift 16 kilograms. That is a remarkable grip for something that looks, from the outside, like a simple rubber cup. But the suckers are far more than gripping devices. Each one is lined with chemoreceptors, thousands of sensory cells that can detect chemical compounds in direct contact with the sucker's surface. This means that the octopus does not merely touch what it explores, it tastes it. Every surface the sucker makes contact with yields a complex chemical signature,
giving the octopus information about what it is touching, what has recently been there, what it might be worth investigating further. The sucker is simultaneously hand, fingertip, and tongue. The researchers who study this have mapped the neural architecture in extraordinary detail. Each sucker has its own dedicated segment of the arm's nerve cord, a kind of internal map that the scientists call suckeroptopy, a topographical arrangement where each sucker's sensory signals are processed by its own dedicated neural station along the arm's axial nerve cord. It is the equivalent of having a separate, specialized brain region devoted to each individual fingertip, multiplied by 1,600. The chemical sophistication of the suckers extends to something even more remarkable. The octopus's skin contains a compound that specifically inhibits the attachment reflex of its own suckers. This means the octopus's arms cannot accidentally stick to its own body. They recognize it as self rather than substrate. This may sound like a simple engineering solution, but think about what it implies. The octopus has evolved a peripheral self-recognition system, a molecular boundary between self and not self that operates entirely outside the central brain. The body knows where it ends, and it communicates that knowledge chemically at the level of individual cells. Now, let us turn to the mantle, the large rounded structure that forms the main body of the octopus, sitting above and behind the arm crown. This is where all the vital organs live: the digestive system, the reproductive organs, the gills, and the 3 hearts. 3 hearts. Let us stay with that for a moment.
2 of those hearts are called branchial hearts, and they sit at the base of the 2 gills, one on each side of the mantle cavity. Their sole purpose is to pump deoxygenated blood through the gill capillaries, where it picks up oxygen from the water passing over them. The 3rd heart, the systemic heart, then receives this freshly oxygenated blood and pumps it out through the rest of the body, supplying the muscles, the brain, the arms, the skin with the oxygen they need. What makes this even more interesting is what happens when the octopus needs to move fast. The octopus's primary means of rapid movement is jet propulsion. It draws water into the mantle cavity through openings near the arm crown, then contracts the powerful mantle muscles to force that water out through the siphon in a focused jet, propelling itself backwards through the water. It is fast, effective, and metabolically extremely expensive. And here is the curious thing. When the octopus jets, the systemic heart actually stops beating. The intense muscular pressure of the mantle contraction makes it impossible for the heart to pump against, so it simply ceases, waiting for the mantle to relax before resuming its work. This is why you will almost never see an octopus jetting for more than a few seconds at a time. It is exhausting in a way that is almost literally heartbreaking. The octopus prefers, whenever possible, to walk. And what beautiful walking it is. Using its rear 2 or 4 arms as legs, the octopus moves across the substrate in a gait that has no real equivalent in the vertebrate world. A slow, fluid, rippling progression that looks like something between walking and flowing. The front arms reach out ahead, touching, tasting, exploring, while the rear arms push and the middle arms do a little of both. It is mesmerizing to watch and very relaxing, and we will see a great deal more of it as our morning unfolds. Now we come to the blood, and this is where the octopus delivers perhaps its most poetic surprise. The octopus's blood is blue.
Not merely bluish, not blue-tinged, but genuinely brilliantly blue, the color of deep ocean water seen from below, the color of clear sky reflected in a still lake. The reason lies in the protein that the octopus uses to carry oxygen through its bloodstream. In our own blood, that protein is hemoglobin, an iron-containing molecule that binds oxygen efficiently at body temperature and carries it as a red pigment through our red blood cells, giving our blood its characteristic color. The octopus uses a completely different molecule, hemocyanin. Hemocyanin does not contain iron, it contains copper, and at the molecular level, copper interacts with oxygen to produce a compound that is, at full oxygenation, a vivid blue. When the blood is deoxygenated, when it has delivered its oxygen to the tissues and is returning to the hearts, it becomes nearly colorless. The sight of it is genuinely beautiful. The octopus's 3 hearts pump blue blood through a complex closed circulatory system, the blue fading and brightening as the oxygen ebbs and flows. Hemocyanin is not as efficient as hemoglobin at carrying oxygen under warm, oxygen-rich conditions. This is one of the reasons the octopus evolved 3 hearts rather than 1 to compensate for the lower oxygen-carrying capacity of its blood. But in the cold, low oxygen conditions of the deep ocean, hemocyanin outperforms hemoglobin significantly. Copper binds and releases oxygen more effectively than iron in those conditions. It is one of the many places where the octopus's chemistry has been precisely tuned to the environment it inhabits. The gills themselves, housed in the mantle cavity on either side of the viscera, are extraordinarily efficient. The octopus pumps water over them by contracting its mantle muscles and can extract up to 11% of the dissolved oxygen from the water, a rate 4 times higher than many other aquatic organisms. This high oxygen uptake is essential for fueling both the intense metabolic demands of jet propulsion and the remarkable energy cost of the continuous real-time color changes that the skin performs, moment to moment, throughout the animal's waking life. Speaking of which, what about that strange donut-shaped brain sitting in the middle of everything, wrapped around the throat?
The central brain of the octopus is protected by a cartilaginous capsule, the closest thing the animal has to a skull, and it is divided into more than 60 distinct lobes, each responsible for a different aspect of the animal's physiology and behavior. There are lobes for vision, lobes for chemoreception, lobes for arm coordination, lobes for learning and memory. The organization is complex and highly specialized, and research continues to reveal new details about how the different regions communicate and interact. What we know for certain is that this small ring-shaped structure is capable of extraordinary things. It learns, it remembers, it forms preferences and makes decisions. It generates the complex color patterns that appear on the skin and coordinates the simultaneous movements of 8 independent arm systems. All of this in a brain that weighs, in most species, just a few grams. Let us pause here for a moment as our octopus settles against a ledge of coral, its arms draped around it like a cascade of dark ribbons, and simply hold the image of what we have just explored. 3 hearts pumping blue blood through a closed circulatory system, a central brain shaped like a donut ringed around the throat, 8 arms with nearly 1,700 chemosensory suckers, a distributed nervous system of 500 million neurons spread throughout the entire body. No bones, no rigid shell, nothing fixed or rigid or immovable. Just muscle and nerve and the remarkable, soft, endlessly adaptable body of the octopus. Breathe in and then slowly out. Out here on the reef, in the growing morning light, our octopus is resting its front arms on a small ledge of brain coral, its eyes moving with small, almost imperceptible adjustments to track the movements of the reef around it. There is a quiet alertness to it, the particular kind of attention that belongs to a highly intelligent animal that is not quite at rest and not quite in motion. Just watching, just being, just existing, fully and completely in this moment of ocean morning.
We will leave it here briefly and return in a moment. There is something we have not yet spoken about, something that happens on the surface of the octopus's skin, and it is perhaps the most astonishing thing we have encountered yet.
Watch the octopus. Watch it very carefully, because something is about to happen, and if you blink at the wrong moment, you will miss it. Our octopus, resting against the ledge of brain coral with its skin currently a deep terracotta brown mottled with cream, a color that matches the surrounding rock almost perfectly, is about to move onto a new surface. It reaches one arm out toward a patch of pale, sandy substrate scattered with fragments of broken shell. The arm makes contact, and then in the time it takes to draw a single breath, the octopus's entire skin shifts. The terracotta brown lightens to cream. The cream deepens to ivory. Small dark speckles appear, scattered across the surface of the mantle, mimicking the fragments of shell below. The texture of the skin changes simultaneously. Smooth muscle bundles called papillae rise up across the surface, creating tiny bumps and ridges that echo the rough, irregular texture of the sandy bottom. The octopus, which a moment ago looked like rocky reef, now looks like sandy rubble. The transformation took perhaps half a second. You have just witnessed one of the most complex and astonishing biological events in the natural world. The skin of the octopus is a layered, living optical system, a multi-channel display technology that has no equivalent in any human engineering. To understand how it works, we need to look at it in layers, from the outermost surface down to the deepest. The first and most immediately visible layer consists of the chromatophores. These are specialized cells. There are hundreds of thousands of them, densely packed across the entire surface of the octopus's body, and each one contains a tiny elastic sac filled with pigment. The pigments available are limited to yellow, orange, red, brown, and black. No blue, no green, no purple, not in the chromatophores themselves. But the colors they produce can range from the palest straw yellow to the deepest charcoal black, depending on the combination and density of the pigment cells that are activated. Each chromatophore is surrounded by a ring of 15 to 25 radial muscles, tiny fibers that radiate outward from the pigment sac like the spokes of a wheel. When those muscles contract, they pull the elastic sac open, flattening it into a disc and making the color intensely visible, a vivid, saturated spot of pigment. When the muscles relax, the sac shrinks back into a tiny, nearly invisible point, and the color disappears. By controlling which chromatophores are open and which are closed, and to what degree, the nervous system can create any pattern, any gradient, any moving wave of color it chooses. And, crucially, this is not a slow process mediated by hormones, as color change is in many other animals. It is direct neural control, as fast and precise as the movement of a finger. Below the chromatophores lies the second layer, the iridophores. These cells work on an entirely different principle. They do not contain pigment at all. Instead, they contain stacks of extremely thin plates made of a protein called reflectin, and they produce color through a physical process called thin film interference, the same principle that creates the rainbow colors in a soap bubble or the sheen on a dragonfly's wing. By controlling the spacing between these reflectin plates at a nanoscale level, the iridophores can produce brilliant iridescent blues, greens, golds, and silvers. These colors shift with viewing angle, creating the shimmering metallic quality that you sometimes see on an octopus's skin, the same kind of quality that makes opal and mother of pearl so captivating to human eyes. Below the iridophores, at the deepest level, are the leucophores. These are white cells, not white in the sense of containing white pigment, but white in the sense of being broadband reflectors, diffusing all wavelengths of light equally in all directions. They act, in effect, as a mirror of the environment.
By reflecting the ambient light of whatever setting the octopus is in, they allow the skin to match the brightness and overall spectral quality of the surroundings, so that even if the color is right, the brightness and the diffuse quality of the light will also match. It is a system of extraordinary completeness. And then, above all of this, above the chromatophores, above the iridophores, above the leucophores, comes the textural dimension. Scattered across the skin are specialized muscle bundles called papillae, which can be raised or lowered in milliseconds to create three-dimensional surface structures: bumps, ridges, spines, knobs, and irregular protrusions of every size and shape. When an octopus moves onto a surface of rough, irregular coral, the papillae rise to match it. When it moves onto smooth sand, the papillae flatten and the skin becomes glassy. When it needs to look like seaweed, individual papillae can be held partially extended in long, tapering points that flutter slightly in the current. The combination of all these systems, the color, the iridescence, the brightness matching, and the texture, produces a camouflage capability that is quite simply without equal anywhere in the animal kingdom. A large octopus, an animal that might weigh 3 or 4 kilograms, with an arm span of nearly a meter, can, on the right surface, become so completely invisible that experienced marine biologists have literally reached into what they thought was a pile of rocks and discovered an octopus where the rocks had been. And what makes this even more remarkable is that we are fairly confident the octopus is, in the conventional sense, colorblind. The octopus's retina contains only a single type of photoreceptor, a single kind of light-sensitive cell. In the human eye, we have 3 types of cone cells, each most sensitive to a different wavelength of light. And it is the comparison of signals from these 3 types that allows our brains to construct the experience of color. The octopus has only 1 type of receptor. In the technical language of visual science, this should mean it cannot distinguish between wavelengths, that it cannot see color at all. And yet, it clearly can, in some functional sense, produce extraordinarily precise color matches to its environment. How? The answer appears to lie in those strangely shaped pupils, the horizontal, crescent-shaped, or W-shaped, or dumbbell-shaped openings that give the octopus such an unusual, almost alien expression. The shape is not decorative, it is not accidental. It is a sophisticated optical tool. In vertebrate eyes, in our eyes, the lens is designed to minimize something called chromatic aberration. This is the tendency of a simple lens to focus different wavelengths of light at slightly different distances behind the lens, so that when red is in focus, blue may be slightly blurred, and vice versa. Camera manufacturers and spectacle makers spend considerable effort correcting for this aberration because it degrades the sharpness of the image. The octopus, it appears, does exactly the opposite. Its oddly shaped pupil is specifically designed to maximize chromatic aberration, to create the maximum possible difference between where different wavelengths of light come to focus behind the lens. The octopus can then determine which wavelength of light is most present in a given part of its visual field by changing the depth of its eyeball, physically adjusting the distance between the lens and the retina until a particular wavelength comes into sharpest focus. The sharpness of focus becomes a proxy for wavelength. The octopus uses blur to see color. It is a solution that is simultaneously so strange and so elegant that it has left researchers genuinely delighted when they first understood it. And it is characteristic of the octopus, this quality of solving problems by routes that no vertebrate would ever have found, routes that require rethinking the assumptions about what the tools are for. Now, let us speak about a species that takes all of this to an almost unbelievable extreme: the mimic octopus. The mimic octopus, Thalmoctopus mimicus, was first documented by scientists in 1998 off the coast of Sulawesi in Indonesia, and its discovery caused something close to astonishment in the marine biology community. It was already known that octopuses could camouflage themselves passively, that they could match their appearance to the substrate around them. But the mimic octopus does something categorically different. It actively impersonates specific other animals. When threatened by a small fish it cannot easily escape, the mimic octopus will flatten its body, spread its arms in specific patterns, and swim with a distinctive undulating motion, adopting the unmistakable appearance, color, and movement of a flatfish. When confronted by a dam fish, it will hang most of its arms down into a crevice and wave the remaining two upward in the S-shaped swaying motion of a venomous sea snake. The exact species of sea snake, researchers noted, that preys on dam fish. When it needs to produce a general warning, it can arrange its arms and mantle to produce the silhouette and coloration of a lionfish, the spines of whose fins carry venom.
More than 15 distinct impersonations have been documented. The mimic octopus does not simply blend in, it tells stories with its body. Stories designed to deceive specific predators by evoking specific threats. This requires not just color matching and texture matching, but the ability to produce precisely controlled, sustained postural patterns, to hold a shape and a behavior consistently enough that a watching predator genuinely believes what it is seeing. Whether this constitutes something we might call imagination, whether the mimic octopus has some internal representation of what a lionfish looks like and is deliberately adopting that representation, we cannot say with certainty. But the behavior is so complex, so context-specific, and so precisely tailored to the actual predator present that it is difficult to explain without invoking something like planning, something like knowing what effect you want to produce and choosing the means to produce it. Let the thought float through you gently, not agitation or overexcitement, just a quiet sense of wonder, the specific kind of wonder that comes from understanding that the world contains things more extraordinary than you had previously imagined. This is what the octopus offers, again and again. Not shock, not alarm, but a steady expansion of what you thought possible. There is a final character we should visit before we move on from this subject, the blue-ringed octopus. This small animal, no larger than a tennis ball, lives in the tidal rock pools and shallow coral reefs of the Indo-Pacific, from Australia to Japan. It is beautiful in the way that certain very dangerous things are beautiful, marked in its resting state with muted brown and yellow rings that give it an almost jeweled appearance. When it is alarmed or preparing to bite, those rings change. The iridophores in the ring regions activate, and the rings flash to a vivid, intense electric blue that is visible from several meters away. The animal pulses this pattern rapidly, a strobe-like display of luminous rings against a dark background. This is aposematic coloration, a warning signal that evolution has produced because it genuinely benefits both the animal displaying it and, in a sense, the predator seeing it. Because the blue-ringed octopus's bite carries tetrodotoxin, one of the most potent neurotoxins found in any animal. The toxin is not produced by the octopus itself, but by bacteria living within its salivary glands, and it is present in concentrations high enough in a single animal to kill a human being. There is no antidote. The warning rings are not a bluff. In the reef, in the early morning, the blue-ringed octopus goes about its small, extraordinary life, hunting tiny crabs and shrimp, displaying its warning only when genuinely threatened, spending most of its time in quiet, careful exploration of the rock pool world. It is a reminder that even in a chapter about beauty and disguise, the ocean maintains its complexity, its layers of danger and grace. Our common octopus, meanwhile, has moved on from the sandy ledge and is now exploring a new section of the reef, its color shifting and rippling as it goes, so fluid in its transitions that it is sometimes difficult to tell where the octopus ends and the reef begins. Watch it for a few more moments. Watch the way the surface of its skin flows. Watch the way the pattern of each new surface seems to simply appear on the animal's body, as though it is absorbing the world it moves through and wearing it. When you are ready, we will follow it deeper into the reef, into the quieter, more shadowed sections where different octopuses make their homes and where the variety of oceanic life becomes something close to overwhelming in its beauty. The reef is a city. This is an analogy that marine biologists use sometimes, and it is apt in more ways than it might first appear. A coral reef is not simply a collection of corals, it is a three-dimensional structure that has been built millimeter by millimeter over thousands of years by tiny colonial animals called coral polyps, and that provides, by virtue of its architecture, a dizzying number of different habitats stacked on top of each other and side by side. There are sunlit upper terraces and shadowed overhangs. There are narrow crevices and wide sandy plains. There are the open water columns above the reef crown and the dark, sheltered caverns beneath the reef base. And each of these microhabitats is home to its own community of specialists, each perfectly adapted to the particular conditions of its zone. The octopus navigates all of these zones. Our common octopus spends much of its daytime in the middle zones of the reef, the areas of mixed coral, rock, and rubble where hiding places are abundant and food is reliably present. But different octopus species have colonized every available level, from the shallowest intertidal pools to the deepest ocean trenches. Let us take a journey through these different worlds and meet the octopuses that have made each one their home. We begin at the surface, or more precisely, just below it, in the warm, well-lit waters of the intertidal and shallow subtidal zone. Here, in water ranging from just a few centimeters to perhaps 20 meters deep, lives the Hawaiian day octopus, known in the Hawaiian language as hi'i-maoli, the octopus that dissolves into the reef by day. This species is one of the few that is active primarily in daylight rather than at night, and it is a common sight for snorkelers in the shallow reef flats of Hawaii, where it can be seen hunting crabs and shrimp among the coral heads during the morning and early afternoon. The Hawaiian day octopus is a master of the shallow reef in the way that a skilled urban explorer is a master of a city. It knows every crevice, every overhang, every potential hiding place. It maintains a den, which it returns to repeatedly, and in front of the den it often builds a midden, a pile of discarded shells and rubble that it has accumulated from its meals and from general den maintenance activity. These middens can become substantial structures over time, and they serve as a kind of signature. A pile of empty crab shells and mussel fragments in front of a rock crevice is almost always a sign that an octopus lives inside. The octopus's relationship to its den is complex and emotionally resonant, at least to human observers. It maintains the den with obvious care, removing debris, rearranging the entrance stones, keeping the interior clean and ventilated. It returns to the same den after hunting forays that may take it many meters away across the reef. And when it is inside the den, it often closes the entrance partially with small rocks or shell fragments that it arranges like a door, creating a barrier between itself and the outside world. There is a quality of home to it, a sense of a particular, chosen place that belongs to this particular animal. In the Hawaiian tradition, the octopus was considered an aumakua, an ancestor spirit, a deified relative who had taken an animal form to remain close to and protect their living descendants. The octopus's qualities of intelligence, concealment, and sudden appearance from apparently solid rock made it a powerful and appropriate symbol for an ancestral guardian, something that is always present, always watching, easily overlooked, never truly absent. The name He'e itself, meaning to dissolve or to flow away, reflects not just the animal's camouflage, but its capacity to vanish from one place and reappear unchanged in another, like a spirit passing between worlds. It is a beautiful way to think about an animal that is genuinely difficult to see, genuinely surprising when encountered, and genuinely unlike anything else you will meet on a reef. Let us move deeper now. Let us descend below the sunlit upper reef, through the zone where the coral gives way to rubble and the rubble gives way to rock, into the colder, dimmer waters of the kelp forest. Kelp forests are among the most productive ecosystems on Earth. They exist where cold, nutrient-rich water upwells from the deep to meet the shallower coastal zones, bringing with it the minerals and organic compounds that allow giant kelp, Macrocystis pyrifera, to grow to heights of 60 meters and more, its long, ribbon-like fronds reaching from the rocky seafloor all the way to the surface, where they form a dense, swaying canopy that filters the sunlight and creates, below it, a world of green-gold dappled light that is extraordinarily beautiful. In these cold, kelp-tangled waters, from the rocky coastlines of California to the exposed headlands of British Columbia to the turbulent waters of the North Pacific, lives the largest octopus species on Earth, the giant Pacific octopus, Enteroctopus dofleae. Allow yourself to hold the image of this animal for a moment. Its arm span, measured from the tip of one outstretched arm to the tip of the opposite arm, can reach nearly 5 meters in the largest known individuals, though most adults are somewhat smaller. Its weight can exceed 70 kilograms, the weight of a large man. Its arms are massive, muscular things, each one thick as a forearm at its base and tapering to a delicate, highly sensitive point. Its mantle, the main body, is the color of brick-red clay in its natural resting state, though it can shift, as all octopuses can shift, across a remarkable range of colors and textures. The giant Pacific octopus is different from most of its relatives in one important respect. It lives for 3 to 5 years, compared to the 1 or 2 years typical of most octopus species. This extended lifespan, combined with its large brain, appears to allow it to accumulate a much more extensive library of learned knowledge than shorter-lived species. Giant Pacific octopuses in aquaria have demonstrated complex learning abilities, recognizing individual human keepers by their appearance and behavior, showing marked preferences and dislikes, and in some cases, establishing what seems very much like an individual personality. Some individuals bold and curious and quick to approach new objects. Others cautious and methodical and prone to careful investigation before committing to any interaction. They live, in the wild, in dens in the rocky substrate of the kelp forest floor, often choosing large crevices or spaces beneath boulders that are just large enough to fit their substantial bodies. Like their smaller relatives, they maintain these dens with care and pile the detritus of their meals at the entrance. A den entrance ringed by dozens of empty crab shells, sea urchin nests, and clam fragments is the unmistakable signature of a giant Pacific octopus in residence. In the kelp forest, our gentle narration of the octopus's day expands to include the extraordinary landscape around it, because the kelp forest is itself a world of remarkable beauty. The fronds of kelp sway in the current in long, graceful rhythms, their surfaces catching the filtered light and releasing it in shifting patterns of green and gold. Schools of rockfish hover in the mid-water column, barely moving, using the kelp fronds as cover from predators above and below. Sea otters, where they still exist, float on the surface above, wrapping themselves in kelp to anchor themselves while they sleep. Sea urchins graze on the kelp holdfasts below, and the octopus, a keystone predator in this ecosystem, hunts the urchins, helping to maintain the balance between too many and too few, keeping the forest healthy. There is a deep and important lesson in this about the role of the octopus in the ecosystems it inhabits. The octopus is not merely a resident of these places, it is an active participant in their maintenance, a regulator of populations that would, without it, tip into imbalance. Where octopuses disappear from reef ecosystems, the animals they prey on, crabs, urchins, clams, can proliferate to the point where they damage the very structures that support the reef. The octopus is, in the language of ecology, a keystone species, an animal whose presence or absence has effects far disproportionate to its numbers. Now let us descend further than the kelp forests, further than the rocky subtidal zones, into the mesopelagic twilight, the zone between 200 and 1,000 meters deep, where sunlight filters down as a dim blue-green glimmer, and the water is cold and still and very, very dark. Here, in the perpetual gentle dusk of the mid-ocean, lives the glass octopus, Vitrilodonella richardi. Its name is earned immediately upon seeing it. This animal is almost entirely transparent. Its mantle, its arms, its musculature, all of it is colorless and clear, so that you can see directly through the animal's body as though through clouded glass. The only visible parts are the optic nerves, a thin dark stripe running from each eye to the brain, the digestive system, a pale tube running through the center of the body, and the eyes themselves. The glass octopus's eyes are extraordinary even by octopus standards. They are cylindrical, long tubular structures rather than spherical ones, and they point almost directly upward. This orientation allows the animal to look up toward the faint light filtering down from above, watching for the silhouettes of prey against the relative brightness of the surface. The cylindrical shape minimizes the shadow the eye casts downward, making the animal harder to see from below. In the predatory world of the mid-ocean, where anything visible is potentially prey for something larger and faster, the glass octopus has found a solution of remarkable elegance. Simply become invisible. Carry no color, cast no shadow, be glass. And still further down, past the mesopelagic, past the bathypelagic, into the genuine abyssal dark, where the pressure is immense and the temperature approaches zero and no sunlight has ever reached, we find the Dumbo octopus. The Dumbo octopus belongs to the genus Grimpothetus, a group of deep-sea octopuses named after the Disney elephant because of the ear-like fins that protrude from either side of the mantle, small, rounded, fleshy extensions that the animal uses to maneuver in the water column. Where most octopuses jet propulsion or walk, the Dumbo octopus flutters these fins in gentle, steady beats, hovering and gliding through the deep water in a way that looks, to human observers, almost ineffably peaceful, a small, round, tentacled thing slowly flapping its way through the absolute darkness of the abyss. At depths of 3,000 to 5,000 meters, the Dumbo octopus feeds on small crustaceans and worms that it finds near the seafloor, moving with the unhurried patience of an animal that has adapted to a world where energy is scarce and movement is expensive. It lives more slowly than its shallow water relatives, in a cold and dark and quiet world that we are only beginning to explore. Let the image of the Dumbo octopus settle in your mind as you breathe, slowly and evenly. This small, fluttering thing in the absolute dark of the deep ocean, moving with quiet patience through water that has never felt sunlight, in a world as alien to us as any in science fiction, and yet right here, right now, on this same planet we inhabit. It is one of the most quietly astonishing facts about the Earth that at this very moment, 5 kilometers below the surface of the Pacific Ocean, a small octopus with ear-like fins is fluttering softly through the dark, and it has been doing so or animals very much like it have been doing so for millions of years. The world contains more gentleness than we sometimes remember. In 2009, at an aquarium in California, a staff member began to notice something unusual. Several tanks in the invertebrates section were being broken into at night. Fish were disappearing. There was no obvious explanation, no sign of forced entry, no obvious predator, no gap in the tank walls large enough for anything significant to fit through. The staff set up cameras to investigate. What they discovered became one of the most frequently told stories in the history of cephalopod research. Every night, after the aquarium closed and the lights were dimmed and the human staff had gone home, the resident octopus was climbing out of its own tank. It was crossing the floor of the aquarium, a journey of several meters, locating the fish tanks by the chemical traces in the water that seeped from beneath the tank covers, opening those tanks, feeding, and then returning to its own tank and closing the lid behind itself, so that by morning, everything appeared normal. It had been doing this, apparently, for some time before the cameras caught it. The story tends to make people laugh when they first hear it, and then, a moment later, to feel something more complex, because the behavior it describes is not simple. It requires spatial memory, a map of the aquarium's layout held in the octopus's mind and reliable enough to navigate in the dark. It requires understanding of cause and effect, knowing that a closed lid can be opened and that what is inside is worth the effort of opening. It requires planning, in some functional sense, the decision to travel to the fish tank rather than simply exploring the nearest surface. And it requires, perhaps most strikingly, the self-restraint to return to its own tank afterward and restore the appearance of normality, which suggests some level of understanding that the discovery of its activities might have consequences. We cannot know with certainty what the octopus was experiencing as it made these nocturnal excursions. We cannot know what, if anything, it understood about the concept of getting away with it. But we can say with confidence that the behavior could not have been produced by simple instinct alone. Something more flexible, more situationally responsive, more, the word is difficult to avoid, intelligent was at work.
The intelligence of the octopus has been a subject of serious scientific investigation for several decades, and the accumulated evidence is both extensive and genuinely surprising. Let us move through it gently, in the same exploratory spirit that the octopus itself brings to every new surface it encounters. The simplest demonstrations of octopus intelligence involve what is called associative learning, the ability to connect an action or stimulus with a reward. Octopuses can learn, in a relatively small number of trials, to navigate mazes, to pull levers that release food, to choose between objects of different shapes or colors to receive a food reward. They can learn to open child-proof pill bottles, a task that many humans find challenging, in a matter of minutes, unscrewing them by applying the correct direction and amount of torque through their suckers. They can learn to unscrew jars that contain crabs, a task that requires maintaining a sustained grip with one group of arms while applying rotational force with another. These are not simple reflex behaviors. They require the integration of information from multiple sensory systems, visual, chemosensory, proprioceptive, with flexible motor planning in real time. More impressive still is the octopus's capacity for observational learning, the ability to learn from watching another individual perform a task rather than through direct trial and error. In experiments at the Stazione Zoologica in Naples, octopuses that were allowed to watch a trained demonstrator octopus select a specific object from a choice of two were subsequently far more likely to make the same selection themselves, even though they had received no direct training. They had learned by observation, by watching, processing what they saw, and applying the information to their own subsequent behavior. This capacity for observational learning is significant beyond its immediate applications because it suggests something about the octopus's ability to represent the actions of other individuals mentally, to understand, at some level, what the other animal is doing and why, and to extract the relevant information for its own use. In the study of animal cognition, this is considered a relatively sophisticated ability associated in vertebrates with animals that have complex social lives and the ability to learn from group experience. The octopus is largely solitary. It does not live in groups or maintain long-term social relationships outside of mating. Yet it can learn from others as efficiently as many social animals can. Then there is the question of individual recognition. In multiple aquarium settings, octopuses have been observed treating different individual humans differently, reacting with apparent curiosity and engagement to staff members who feed and interact with them positively, and with withdrawal or even active defensiveness to those who disturb or prod them. In one frequently cited account from Seattle Aquarium, an octopus would consistently squirt water at a particular member of staff who regularly performed intrusive maintenance on its tank while leaving other staff members dry. This behavior was consistent enough and specific enough to be considered evidence of genuine individual recognition. The octopus had a mental representation of specific humans distinct enough to guide differential behavior toward them. And then there is play. Play behavior, activity that appears to serve no immediate practical purpose and that is engaged in for what looks, from the outside, very much like its own sake, has been observed in octopuses in multiple contexts. Octopuses in aquaria have been documented repeatedly pushing objects toward a current return jet, watching them circulate, and then pushing them again, behavior that researchers describe as object bouncing and that has no obvious feeding or survival function. They have been seen engaging in extended interactions with hermit crabs that go well beyond what predation would require, turning them over, watching them, releasing them, and engaging with them again. They have been documented showing what appears to be preferences in toys and objects, engaging more persistently with novel or complex items than with familiar or simple ones. Play in the animal kingdom is generally associated with intelligence, with the kind of nervous system that has spare cognitive capacity beyond what immediate survival demands, and that benefits from the exercise and exploration that play provides. The observation of play in octopuses is one of the pieces of evidence that has led researchers to speak with increasing seriousness of octopus personalities, individual differences in behavior and response style that persist across time and across different situations. Some octopuses are bold, some are cautious, some are exploratory and quick to approach novel stimuli, others are slow to engage and prefer familiar environments. Some show what can only be described as curiosity, a sustained interest in investigating new objects or situations that goes beyond what immediate need would require. These differences are consistent within individuals across multiple encounters and contexts, which is one of the definitional criteria for what we mean by personality. The idea of an invertebrate with a personality is one that still makes some biologists slightly uncomfortable. It feels, to some, like anthropomorphism pushed too far. But the behavioral evidence is robust, and the underlying neuroscience provides a plausible mechanism. A brain with 60 distinct lobes, 500 million neurons, and extensive capacity for learned modification of behavior is the kind of brain that would naturally produce individual differences in how it processes and responds to experience. Personality, in this view, is not a distinctively mammalian phenomenon, but a consequence of sufficient neural complexity, and the octopus has that complexity in abundance.
Now let us speak about tool use, because it is here that the octopus's intelligence intersects most directly with our traditional definitions of what distinguishes genuinely intelligent animals from those operating primarily on instinct. The use of objects as tools, defined in the strictest behavioral science sense as the manipulation of one object to affect another object with the goal of achieving a result that could not be achieved with the body alone, was long considered a reliable marker of high intelligence, primarily observed in primates, corvids, and a small number of other vertebrates. The discovery that octopuses engage in tool use has therefore been one of the more philosophically interesting findings of recent cephalopod research. The most well-documented example involves the veined octopus of Indonesia and the Philippines, Amphiooctopus marginatus, sometimes called the coconut octopus for reasons that will become immediately apparent. Beginning in 2005, researchers observing the species in the shallow sandy coastal waters of northern Sulawesi began to document a behavior they had never seen in any invertebrate before. The octopuses were collecting discarded coconut shells, the halved shells of coconuts that had fallen into the water and sunk to the sandy bottom, cleaning them of sediment using water jets and arm manipulation, and then carrying them.
The carrying is what makes this genuine tool use rather than opportunistic shelter use. The octopus does not simply move into an available coconut shell and use it as a den. It picks up the shell, tucks its arms underneath it, and walks away, moving across the sandy bottom in a strange, stilted locomotion, often for many meters, carrying the shell with it. It will carry one half, travel a distance, set it down, return for the other half, carry it to the same location, and then assemble the two halves around itself into a spherical shelter. And then, when it needs to move on, it dismantles the shelter, carries the shells with it, and reassembles them at the next location. This is, without question, tool use. It involves selecting a useful object, carrying it in a state of non-utility, the shell serves no purpose while it is being carried, and deploying it when needed. The octopus is not using the shell because it is currently useful. It is carrying it because it will be useful later. This requires a mental representation of a future state, a future need, and the planning capacity to take action now in service of that future need. It is, in the technical language of cognitive science, perspective cognition, thinking ahead. Another species takes a different approach to the same basic problem of self-defense. The blanket octopus, a large, spectacularly beautiful animal with webbing between its arms that it can spread like a cape or cloak, has been observed doing something that startled researchers when they first documented it. It was carrying the severed tentacles of the Portuguese man-of-war. The man-of-war is one of the most venomous animals in the ocean. Its tentacles, which can extend for many meters, are covered with specialized cells called nematocysts that fire tiny, barbed, venom-injecting threads on contact. For most ocean animals, contact with a man-of-war tentacle is extremely painful and potentially lethal. The blanket octopus is immune to the venom. It tears tentacles from the man-of-war and carries them, using them as weapons against predators. It has essentially borrowed someone else's chemical defense system for its own use, a level of environmental appropriation that requires both the understanding that the tentacles are dangerous to others even when detached, and the ability to deploy them effectively in a threat situation.
In these moments, watching the octopus solve problems that we would not have imagined posing to an invertebrate, it is worth returning to a fundamental question. What is intelligence for? The traditional vertebrate-centric view has been that intelligence evolved in service of complex social life, that the need to navigate the relationships, hierarchies, and coalitions of group living drove the development of large, flexible brains in primates and corvids and cetaceans. The octopus challenges this view.
It is almost entirely solitary. It has no group to navigate, no hierarchy to manage, no social memory to maintain. Its intelligence evolved in the service of individual survival, of finding prey and avoiding predators in a three-dimensional, constantly changing environment where the ability to learn, adapt, plan, and improvise was a decisive advantage. What the octopus demonstrates is that there are multiple pathways to intelligence. Social complexity is one driver. Individual ecological challenge is another. The octopus followed the second path and arrived at a form of intelligence that is, in many respects, comparable to that of much larger, longer-lived vertebrates, and arrived there by a completely different route, using completely different structures over a completely different timescale. It is one of the most important things about the octopus. It is a proof of concept. Intelligence is not a vertebrate invention. It is not even a social animal invention. It is something that emerges wherever the conditions are right from the general properties of sufficiently complex nervous systems responding to sufficiently demanding environments. The octopus is proof that it could have happened many different ways, that it probably did in many different lineages over hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary history. That we are, in all likelihood, far from the only kind of intelligence that has ever existed on this planet. Let that thought settle into you slowly. Let it be not frightening, but reassuring. A reminder that the capacity for awareness and experience and cleverness is not rare and precious and precarious, but something that nature reaches for again and again, wherever the conditions allow. Our octopus, which has been investigating a large conch shell with evident interest for the last several minutes, finally determines that there is nothing inside worth further effort and releases it, allowing it to sink back to the sand. Its attention shifts to a small fish hiding in a fold of coral. Its skin darkens, its arms flatten against the reef, and it begins, very slowly, to stalk. To be an octopus is to inhabit a sensory world that is, in important ways, fundamentally different from our own, richer in some dimensions, more limited in others, and organized according to a completely different set of priorities. We have already spoken about the octopus's color vision, the remarkable capacity to produce precise color matches to the environment despite having only a single type of photoreceptor, achieved through the exploitation of chromatic aberration in those strangely shaped pupils. Let us spend a little more time with the eyes themselves, because they are worth dwelling on. The octopus's eyes are camera-type eyes, the same general design as vertebrate eyes, which is one of the most famous examples of convergent evolution in biology. Two completely separate lineages, one leading to all the vertebrates, one leading to cephalopods, independently evolved the same basic optical structure, a lens that focuses light onto a photosensitive retina at the back of the eye, with an iris that controls the amount of light entering. This convergence happens separately, in separate lineages, from separate ancestral structures, driven by the same environmental pressure, the need to form clear, detailed images of a complex visual environment. The fact that natural selection found the same solution twice, the camera eye, says something important about how constrained the space of possible solutions to that problem actually is. But the octopus's camera eye has a particular feature that vertebrate camera eyes generally lack. The photoreceptors in the retina are arranged with their sensitive ends pointing toward the light rather than away from it. In the vertebrate retina, the photoreceptors are inverted. They point away from the incoming light, and the light must pass through layers of cells before reaching them,
which creates a small blind spot where the nerves exit the eye. The octopus retina has no such blind spot. It is, in this technical sense, better designed.
The eyes of the octopus are also stabilized by a system of balance organs called statocysts, paired fluid-filled structures in the head that respond to gravity and to the direction of acceleration, functioning similarly to the vestibular system in our inner ears. These statocysts are responsible for one of the most reliably striking things you notice when watching an octopus. Regardless of how the animal orients its body, whether it is upside down, sideways, tumbling through the water during a rapid escape jet, the eyes remain horizontal. The pupils, those strange horizontal slots, maintain their orientation relative to the gravitational field, not relative to the body that houses them. The octopus always knows which way is up, and its eyes always present the world in the same gravitational frame of reference, even as the body twists and contorts around them. The visual field of the octopus is close to panoramic. With eyes positioned on either side of the head, each eye covers a wide angle of view, and together they provide very nearly 360-degree coverage of the surrounding space, a significant advantage for an animal that has predators above, below, and to every side. There is relatively limited binocular overlap at the front, the zone where the fields of both eyes overlap and stereoscopic depth perception is possible, which suggests that the octopus does not rely primarily on depth judgment by stereopsis, the way we do, but may instead use other cues, including the monocular cues such as motion parallax and relative size that work well with a single eye. Now let us descend from vision to the sense that is, in many ways, even more central to the octopus's experience of the world: chemoreception. The octopus lives in a world saturated with chemical information. Every surface it moves across carries traces, molecular signatures of everything that has been there before, left as films of protein and lipid and carbohydrate that persist on hard substrates and seep slowly into the surrounding water. The prey an octopus hunts leaves these traces, the predators it avoids leave them, other octopuses leave them, the coral and rock and sand of the reef are saturated with them. The suckers on the octopus's arms are the primary organ for reading this chemical world. Each sucker is lined with thousands of chemoreceptors distributed across both the infundibulum and the acetabulum, cells that bind specific molecular compounds and generate electrical signals that travel up the arm's nerve cord. By dragging its arms across surfaces, by running its suckers over objects, by pressing a sucker to the substrate and waiting for the chemical signals to register, the octopus is simultaneously touching and tasting everything it encounters. Researchers have established that this chemosensory ability is remarkably sophisticated. Octopuses have demonstrated in controlled experiments the ability to distinguish between prey items, crabs, shrimp, fish, on the basis of chemical cues alone, in the dark with no visual information available. They can detect and follow chemical trails left by prey animals, tracking the fading molecular signature of a passing crab through the substrate in a way that is functionally similar to how a dog follows a scent trail. They showed distinct preferences for specific prey species that appeared to be based on chemical identification rather than visual recognition. What is particularly interesting is the relationship between vision and chemoreception in the octopus's decision-making. Research has established that there is a sensory hierarchy. When visual information and chemical information conflict, when the octopus sees one thing but tastes something different, it tends to rely on the chemical information. The chemical sense is, for the octopus, a more reliable and more fundamental source of truth about the world than vision is. This makes a certain kind of ecological sense. In the complex, visually cluttered, often dimly lit environment of the reef, visual information is easily confused, easily falsified by camouflage,
easily blocked by coral branches and rubble. Chemical information is harder to fake, slower to dissipate, and in many ways more precisely identifying. Beyond the suckers, the octopus also has a more distant form of chemoreception, an olfactory organ, a small structure in the head that can change its shape from relaxed to erect in response to waterborne chemical stimuli. This organ allows the octopus to detect, at a distance, dissolved chemicals drifting in the water, amino acids and proteins from distant prey, salts and other markers from the substrate, the chemical signatures of other animals moving through the water column. It provides a kind of chemical landscape of the surrounding ocean, allowing the octopus to orient toward food sources and away from threats, even before making any direct contact with them. There is also proprioception, the sense of the body's own position and movement, and this is one of the few sensory systems in which the octopus appears to be relatively limited. In vertebrates with jointed limbs, proprioception is achieved through sensory receptors in the joints and muscles that detect angles and tensions and provide a continuous report to the brain about exactly where every body part is. The octopus's arms, lacking joints and having an essentially infinite range of possible configurations, are far more difficult to track proprioceptively. Research suggests that octopuses rely primarily on visual monitoring of their own arms to know where they are. They watch their arms rather than feeling their position. This means that when an octopus reaches into a dark crevice where it cannot see its arm, it is operating somewhat more blindly in positional terms than a vertebrate would in the equivalent situation, relying on the arm's semi-autonomous local intelligence combined with the chemical and tactile information from the suckers to guide its exploration. This limitation has an interesting implication for the octopus's relationship to its own body. Without the proprioceptive self-knowledge that most vertebrates have, the continuous, effortless sense of exactly where every limb is, the octopus exists in a slightly less sharply bounded relation to itself. Its arms are somewhat out there in the world, exploring, reporting back. The animal and its environment are in a more continuous dialogue than a vertebrate body usually is. The boundary between the octopus and the reef is, perhaps, a little less absolute. Let us now speak about something that has fascinated researchers since they first noticed it and has not yet been fully explained: the possibility that the octopus can sense light through its skin. The skin of the octopus contains opsins, the same class of light-sensitive proteins that are found in the retina's photoreceptors, the same proteins that make vision possible. These opsins have been found distributed across the skin in densities that vary by region and species, and there is evidence that they are functional, that they respond to light stimulation in a way that influences the animal's behavior. If this is confirmed, it would mean that the octopus not only sees with its eyes, but in some sense with its entire body surface, that its skin is itself a distributed light sensor, providing information about ambient illumination, shadow patterns, and possibly the color of the light reaching different parts of its surface. This would offer one possible mechanism for how the octopus achieves its remarkably precise color matching, not just through the eyes and the central brain, but through a distributed, whole-body sensory system that provides local color information to each region of the skin independently, allowing the chromatophores in each area to match the local light environment directly, without requiring the central brain to calculate and communicate the correct color pattern for every square millimeter of surface. It remains, at the time of this writing, an active area of research, one of those frontier zones in science where the data is accumulating rapidly and the interpretation is still being worked out. But it is characteristic of the octopus that even the most basic questions about how it experiences the world are still yielding surprises, still revealing new dimensions and unexpected capacities. As you drift through this chapter, allow yourself to imagine, just briefly and lightly, what it might be like to perceive the world as the octopus does, to taste through your fingertips, to see, perhaps, with the surface of your skin, to have each of your arms thinking alongside you, not obeying you exactly, but collaborating with you, each one bringing its own sensory input and local intelligence to the shared enterprise of being alive in the ocean. It is, perhaps, the most alien and the most intimate thing about the octopus, that its consciousness, whatever it consists of, is distributed through its body in a way that ours is not. That the experience of being an octopus, if there is such a thing, is less centralized, less consolidated into a single point than the experience of being us. Less I and more we. Less a conductor giving instructions and more an orchestra playing together. Our octopus has been resting for a few minutes in the shade of a large coral head, its arms draped loosely around it, its skin cycling through slow, gentle patterns of color, a rhythmic wave of darker tones moving across the mantle from back to front, then fading, then returning. This patterning, in the absence of any obvious stimulus, may simply be the resting activity of the chromatophore system, maintaining its readiness. Or it may be something more internal, the external expression of some process happening in the brain beneath. We cannot know, but it is beautiful to watch, and there is no need to understand it completely to appreciate it fully. The afternoon light on the reef is softer now, the sun higher, but the quality of the light becoming richer and more golden. We will stay here for a little while longer before moving into the evening, when the octopus's behavior changes, when the reef itself changes, and when we will see something we have not yet witnessed, the octopus as hunter.
As the afternoon shifts toward evening, the reef undergoes a transformation. The quality of the light changes first, the high direct light of midday giving way to a lower-angled, warmer, more oblique illumination that catches the coral at its sides rather than its top, deepening shadows and enriching colors. Schools of small fish that have been feeding in the open water above the reef during the day begin to move downward, seeking the shelter of the coral for the night. The moray eel that retreated into its crevice at dawn extends its head out again, testing the water with its chemical sense, preparing for its own nocturnal foraging. Shrimp and small crabs that have been invisible in crevices and beneath ledges begin to stir. And our octopus, which has been relatively inactive through the warmest part of the afternoon, begins to focus. The octopus is fundamentally a predator. Its entire body plan, the 8 chemosensory arms, the well-developed eyes, the powerful beak, the venomous saliva, is the toolkit of a hunter. And it has been refined over hundreds of millions of years for efficiency and effectiveness. Most species of octopus are primarily nocturnal hunters, active in the hours of darkness when their camouflage gives them their greatest advantage, and when the crabs, clams, and other invertebrates they prey on are most active. But many species, including our common octopus, will hunt at any hour when the opportunity presents itself. The prey of the common octopus is primarily crustaceans. Crabs of various sizes are its preferred food, but it will also take clams, mussels, snails, small fish, and other invertebrates. It is an opportunistic predator, willing to adapt its hunting strategy to whatever is available. And it has a remarkable range of hunting strategies to choose from. The most elegant is the ambush approach. The octopus identifies a potential prey item, say a crab moving along the sandy substrate near the base of the reef. Rather than rushing directly toward it, which would almost certainly alert the crab and trigger its flight response, the octopus adopts a slow, patient, almost imperceptible approach. Its skin takes on precisely the color and texture of whatever surface it is crossing. Its movement is reduced to the absolute minimum, one arm at a time extending slowly forward, the body following in tiny increments, the whole animal advancing in a series of barely perceptible adjustments that individually would not attract notice. This can go on for many minutes, a slow-motion stalk that only a very patient observer would follow to its conclusion. When the octopus judges the moment right, when the distance has closed to within a single swift movement, it acts. The arms spread and drop over the prey item in a motion that is too fast to follow, the web between the arms forming a temporary container that prevents escape. The beak, which has been hidden at the center of the arm crown, engages immediately, delivering a precise bite that injects venom directly into the prey's nervous system. The venom, a complex mixture of proteins including a compound similar to cephalotoxin, acts rapidly, paralyzing the prey. Then the octopus feeds. For a hard-shelled prey item like a crab or a mussel, the octopus has two main techniques. The first is brute force, gripping the shell with multiple suckers and applying the mechanical leverage of its arm muscles to pry it open, which is effective for smaller or weaker shells. The second is drilling, using the radula, a tongue-like organ lined with small, hard teeth, to bore a small hole directly through the shell and then injecting saliva into the hole. The saliva contains not only venom, but also a suite of digestive enzymes that begin to break down the prey's tissue chemically inside the shell. The octopus can then suck out the liquefied contents, leaving behind an empty shell that is the unmistakable signature of octopus predation, a small, neat drill hole in the top of the shell, usually near the hinge. This chemical digestion technique is sophisticated in a way that rewards reflection. The octopus is, in effect, cooking its food before it eats it, using its own biochemistry to pre-process the prey in ways that make consumption more efficient. It is an outside-the-body use of the animal's own internal digestive chemistry, directed and applied as a tool. It is also, incidentally, the technique responsible for many of the octopus predation signs that fishermen and marine biologists have learned to recognize. The piles of drilled shells that accumulate outside octopus dens, each one bearing the tiny circular borehole that is the animal's unmistakable signature. When the octopus encounters a fish, more difficult prey, faster and more aware, it uses a different approach. Rather than stalking, it may use luring, extending one arm and waving it gently, mimicking the movement of a small worm or invertebrate to attract the fish closer. Or it may use a rush attack, closing the distance in a rapid burst and engulfing the fish in its arm web before the fish can accelerate to full speed. Fish are less common prey than invertebrates for most octopus species, but they are not neglected. And there is the matter of defense, because the octopus, despite all its hunting skill, is also prey. Moray eels, conger eels, large fish, marine mammals, and even humans hunt octopuses. And the octopus has evolved a layered suite of defensive responses to meet these threats. The first line of defense is, of course, camouflage, the ability to become so completely indistinguishable from the background that the predator never sees the octopus at all. This works remarkably often. A resting, non-threatened octopus that has matched its surroundings well is very nearly impossible to detect, even for predators with excellent visual acuity. When camouflage fails, when a predator has detected the octopus and is approaching, the octopus has several escalating responses. One is the diamatic display, a sudden dramatic switch to a high-contrast pattern of dark and pale, sometimes combined with the raising of papillae to create an alarming, unfamiliar texture, and the spreading of the web between the arms to make the animal appear much larger. This sudden, unexpected display can startle a predator long enough for the octopus to escape. It is, in effect, a jump scare, a brief, intense visual disruption designed to interrupt the predator's attack and buy time. If diamatic display is insufficient, the octopus turns to its most famous defensive tool, ink. The ink is produced in a specialized gland and stored in an ink sac connected to the siphon. When threatened, the octopus ejects a cloud of ink into the water, mixed with mucus that helps the cloud maintain its shape. The ink is primarily melanin, the same pigment that colors human skin and hair, and it produces a dark, opaque cloud that obscures the octopus from view and can persist in the water for several minutes. The ink also contains compounds, including tyrosinase, that are thought to dull the chemical senses of predators that hunt by smell, creating a zone of sensory confusion that the octopus uses to make its escape. The most interesting thing about ink behavior, however, is that the cloud is not merely an obscuring smokescreen. Research has shown that an octopus, when inking in a confined space, produces a cloud that is roughly shaped like a second octopus, a pseudomorph, maintained by the mucus matrix that holds its shape long enough for a predator to mistake it for the real animal, approach it, and find nothing there. The octopus, meanwhile, has jetted away in the opposite direction under cover of the confusion. It is a decoy, a chemical and visual dummy that buys the precious seconds needed for escape. And the final layer of defense, when all else fails, is the octopus's most ancient and fundamental advantage, the absence of bones. An octopus can squeeze through any opening large enough to admit its beak, which is the only truly rigid structure in its body. The rest will compress, fold, and flow to follow. A fully grown common octopus with an arm span of nearly a meter can pass through a gap no wider than a tennis ball. For a predator designed to chase and corner prey, this is deeply frustrating. The octopus simply flows between the rocks and is gone. After a successful hunt, a crab, duly dispatched and now being methodically opened at the base of a coral head, our octopus is in what looks, from the outside, very much like a state of satisfaction. Its color has softened to a warm, steady reddish brown. Its arms are occupied with the business of extracting the crab's flesh, working with that characteristic efficiency that involves some arms gripping, some arms opening, some arms feeding the beak, all of them coordinating in a fluid, overlapping sequence. There is a quietness to it, a completeness. Around it, the reef is settling into its nighttime rhythm. The parrotfish are secreting their mucus sleeping bags, the translucent cocoons they wrap themselves in each night that may help protect them from parasites. The reef fish are retreating to their sleeping spots. The first night hunters, the scorpionfish, the flatfish, the hunting crustaceans, are beginning to emerge. The octopus finishes its meal and moves back toward its den, carrying the empty crab shell in one arm and dropping it a short distance from the den entrance, adding it to the growing midden. It settles into the crevice, arranges a few small rocks at the entrance, and is still. We will leave it here for a while. In a little while, we will return to watch something very different, the octopus as it sleeps, and the extraordinary events that take place in the skin of a dreaming octopus. But first, we have something important to speak about, something that requires a different kind of stillness from us, a gentler, more reverential attention. Because now we must talk about what happens at the end of an octopus's life and how it begins a new one, and what that costs.
The life of the octopus is brief. This is the first thing to hold in mind as we approach this chapter. In a world full of long-lived organisms, the Greenland shark that may live for 500 years, the ocean quahog clam that can exceed 200 years, the bowhead whale that reaches a century and a half, the octopus burns through its existence with extraordinary speed. Most species live for just 1 to 2 years. Even the giant Pacific octopus, with its relatively extended lifespan, lives for only 3 to 5 years. The smallest species may complete their entire lives, from hatching to reproductive success to death, in a matter of months. In that brief time, the octopus grows with remarkable speed. Some individuals add 5% of their body weight daily during periods of active feeding, learns extensively, hunts effectively, and eventually, when the hormonal conditions are right, mates. And after it mates, something happens that is, in its quiet way, one of the most dramatic events in the natural world. The process is governed by a pair of structures in the brain called the optic glands, small lobes located near the optic lobes that process visual information. Under normal circumstances, the optic glands are kept in a suppressed state by input from the brain. They produce small amounts of the hormones that regulate growth and metabolism, but in controlled quantities.
When the octopus reaches sexual maturity, a timing determined by a combination of age, body size, and environmental cues, the suppression is released. The optic glands begin to produce hormones in much larger quantities, triggering the development of the gonads, changing the octopus's behavior and initiating the sequence of events that will end, for most species, in the animal's death. Mating itself is a delicate and often tense affair. Octopuses are solitary, and any other octopus is, in the first instance, a potential threat rather than a potential partner. Male octopuses are generally significantly smaller than females. In many species, the male is less than a quarter of the female size, which reduces but does not eliminate the risk of being eaten during the approach. To reduce this risk, male octopuses have developed a remarkable range of mating strategies. Some approach cautiously, displaying specific color patterns that signal reproductive intent rather than predatory or competitive aggression. Some mate at arm's length, literally extending a single arm across a significant distance to transfer sperm without bringing the rest of the body within striking range of the female. Some disguise themselves. Male day octopuses have been documented adopting the color pattern of a female of the species to approach a larger rival male without triggering aggression, and then switching to male coloration to mate with females in the area. The actual transfer of sperm uses a specialized structure, the hectocotylus, which is one of the male's arms, typically the third right arm, modified at the tip to function as a copulatory organ. The tip of the arm is lined with grooves and ridges adapted for handling spermatophores, the packets of sperm, and transferring them into the female's mantle cavity, where they will be stored until she is ready to fertilize her eggs. In some extreme species, the male detaches the entire hectocotylus arm and leaves it inside the female, then retreats. She will carry it for some time before using the stored sperm to fertilize her eggs. For the male, after mating, the story ends relatively quickly. The optic glands, no longer suppressed, continue to drive physiological change. The male's appetite decreases. His behavior becomes erratic. He stops defending his territory or maintaining his den, moving instead in a disoriented way across the reef, behavior that makes him conspicuous and vulnerable to predators. Within weeks, he dies. In many species, he is eaten by a predator during this disoriented wandering. In some, he simply stops moving one day and does not start again. The male octopus's post-mating decline is real, it is rapid, and it appears to be physiologically programmed, not starvation or illness in the conventional sense, but a genetically encoded termination sequence that runs its course once mating is complete. The female's story is longer and, in its way, more profound. She finds a den, large enough for her body, well defended, with a good water flow through it. She lays her eggs. The number varies enormously by species, from a few hundred large eggs in species with a long developmental period to hundreds of thousands of tiny eggs in species with a short planktonic larval phase. The eggs are laid in clusters, each cluster suspended from the roof or walls of the den in chains, like clusters of small pale grapes. The female attaches them with a biological adhesive and arranges them so that water can flow between and around them. And then she begins her vigil. She stops eating. This is not a temporary fast, not a brief period of reduced feeding while she focuses on egg guarding. She stops eating entirely, and she will not start again. For the remaining weeks or months of her life, however long it takes her eggs to develop and hatch, she will take no food. She will direct all her remaining energy to the eggs, cleaning them with her suckers to prevent bacterial and fungal growth, aerating them with jets of water from her siphon to maintain the oxygen supply, guarding them against predators, monitoring them continuously. She loses weight. She becomes thinner and paler as weeks pass. The vigor that characterized her as a hunter and a survivor drains gradually from her. But she does not leave the eggs. She does not relent. In the most extreme documented case, a deep-sea octopus observed by researchers at the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute brooded her eggs for 53 months, 4 years and 5 months, without eating. This is the longest brooding period documented for any octopus and possibly for any animal on Earth. Researchers watching the nest by submersible over this extraordinary period observed her condition gradually declining, her color fading, her movements slowing, her responses to stimulation becoming less vigorous. But she remained. When the eggs finally hatched, she was still there, barely alive, and she died shortly after. 53 months without food, without leaving, without abandoning the task she had set herself. We cannot know what the deep-sea octopus experienced during those 53 months. We cannot know whether she suffered, or whether something in her physiology, the suppression of appetite, the redirection of metabolic resources, made the fast less conscious than it would be for us. But the commitment it represents, however we interpret its subjective dimension, is absolute. The eggs, and then the hatching, and then the end. The hatchlings emerge small and helpless. In species with large eggs and long developmental periods, they hatch as miniature versions of the adult, fully formed and capable of immediately adopting a benthic lifestyle. In species with smaller eggs, they hatch as paralarvae, tiny, transparent planktonic creatures carried by the ocean currents for weeks or months before settling to the seafloor to begin their adult lives. Either way, they are immediately on their own. There is no parental care after hatching. The mother is gone, or nearly gone. The young octopuses are orphans from their first moment of independent life.
And yet, they thrive. Generation after generation of tiny octopuses hatching into a world that contains no parent to guide or protect them, and finding their way regardless, driven by the same distributed intelligence, the same sensory richness, the same remarkable adaptability that allowed their mother, and her mother before her, to survive and reproduce and begin the next cycle. There is a species that breaks this pattern, or rather, that represents an intriguing variation on it, and it is worth pausing to consider because it challenges some of our assumptions about the octopus's essentially solitary nature. The larger Pacific-striped octopus, known in the research literature as LPSO and still in the process of being formally named, is a small species from the Pacific coast of Central America that lives in groups of up to 40 individuals, occupying the same territory in conditions of remarkable, for octopuses, sociability. Rather than maintaining exclusive territories and avoiding conspecifics except for mating, LPSO individuals will share dens, forage in proximity to one another, and show no sign of the mutual aggression that characterizes interactions between most octopus species. Their mating is also completely different. Rather than the cautious, arm's-length or disguised approaches used by other species, LPSO individuals mate face-to-face, ventral surfaces touching, beaks in contact. It looks unmistakably like an embrace. And the female LPSO does not die after a single reproductive event. She is iteroparous, capable of laying multiple broods of eggs over several months, reproducing repeatedly without entering the terminal senescence that characterizes most octopus species. The LPSO is, in this sense, a window into a parallel evolutionary possibility. What octopus life might have been like if the forces that pushed towards solitary behavior and semelparous reproduction had pushed differently. It is a reminder that the octopus's characteristic patterns, as widespread as they are not inevitable. Evolution has found other ways to be an octopus. There are perhaps many more yet to be discovered in the unexplored corners of the deep ocean. For now, we sit quietly with the knowledge of the common octopus's brief and total life. 1 or 2 years, one great reproductive event, a vigil in a crevice, alone, until the eggs hatch. And then, silence. Night has fully arrived on the reef.
The last traces of blue-gray twilight have faded from the water above, and the darkness now is nearly complete, punctuated only by the faint bioluminescence of a few organisms moving through the mid-water, and by the pale, diffuse glow that filters down from the stars above the surface on a clear night. The daytime community of the reef has settled into stillness. The corals, which are themselves animals, have extended their tiny feeding polyps into the dark water, feeling for the plankton that drifts down from the surface after sundown. A handful of reef sharks move in slow, steady circles in the water above the coral crown, their lateral lines reading the subtle pressure changes that might indicate a sleeping fish pressed too close to the surface. In the crevice at the base of the coral head, our octopus has been still for more than an hour. Its color has faded to a pale, almost white shade, a consistent and universal pattern across octopus species at rest, a kind of physiological quietude written in the skin. Its arms are arranged around it in a relaxed configuration, not the tense, ready coiling of an alert animal, but the easy drape of something genuinely at rest. Its breathing, the rhythmic expansion and contraction of the mantle as it draws and expels water over the gills, has slowed and become very regular. It is unambiguously asleep. The scientific study of octopus sleep is relatively young, but what it has already revealed has made it one of the most actively discussed topics in the field of animal cognition. Let us move through it carefully because it matters. Sleep in animals is characterized by several features: reduced responsiveness to external stimuli, specific postural patterns associated with rest, and characteristic changes in brain activity that can be measured by electrodes placed near or on the nervous tissue. For most of the 20th century, the study of sleep in animals was dominated by work on mammals and birds, vertebrates with a forebrain structure that made the characteristic electrical patterns of sleep relatively easy to identify and measure. The assumption, largely unchallenged until recently, was that the most interesting and complex forms of sleep, the stage we call REM, or rapid eye movement sleep, associated in humans with vivid dreaming, were the province of mammals and birds. Perhaps, the thinking went, complex sleep required a complex brain of the vertebrate type. The octopus has now made that assumption impossible to maintain. In work published in the journal Nature in 2021, researchers from the Brain Institute at the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte documented the sleep states of the common octopus in extraordinary detail using high-resolution cameras and non-invasive neural monitoring. What they found was a two-stage sleep cycle that bears remarkable structural similarities to the sleep of vertebrates. The first stage, which they called quiet sleep, is exactly what it sounds like. The animal is still, its color is pale and uniform, its responsiveness to external stimuli is dramatically reduced. It does not respond to gentle vibrations or dim flashes of light that would immediately produce a response in an alert, awake animal. Its mantle contractions are slow and regular. It is deeply resting. This phase corresponds, in general terms, to the non-REM sleep stages of vertebrates. And then, approximately once every 20 to 30 minutes, something changes. The octopus's skin begins to move. Not the controlled, purposeful movement of camouflage adjustment, not the slow, deliberate patterning of an animal making a choice, but something faster, more dramatic, more fluid. The colors begin to shift rapidly, flashes of deep russet, pale cream, complex mottled patterns, dark streaks, sudden wide pale expanses, followed by cascades of brown and gold and black. The texture changes simultaneously, papillae rising and falling in rapid succession. The eyes behind their closed lids are moving, tiny rapid shifts of the eyeball, very similar to the rapid eye movements of human REM sleep. The arms twitch and curl, then relax, then twitch again. The mantle contraction rate increases. And then, after approximately a minute, it is all over. The color drains back to pale, the arms relax, the mantle slows, and quiet sleep resumes. This active sleep state, as the researchers named it, is the octopus equivalent of REM sleep. The brain activity during this phase, measured via neural electrodes, matches the brain activity of the waking animal in its complexity and dynamism. This is one of the defining features of REM sleep in vertebrates, the presence of brain activity patterns indistinguishable from full wakefulness during a state of profound physical relaxation and unresponsiveness.
And the skin patterns, those rapid, shifting cascades of color during active sleep, are among the most extraordinary things that have been documented about the octopus. When the researchers examined those patterns carefully, what they found was this: the color sequences observed during active sleep were not random. They resembled, in their composition and organization, the color patterns that the individual octopus used during its waking life for specific purposes. The pattern it used to camouflage itself against a particular substrate, the pattern it deployed during a hunting approach, the display it produced when confronted by a threat. The octopus, during active sleep, appeared to be cycling through its own repertoire of waking patterns, replaying them in abbreviated and accelerated form while deeply asleep. What does this mean? The researchers are careful, as scientists should be, about the interpretation. There are at least two possibilities. The first is that the octopus is practicing its color patterns during sleep, maintaining and consolidating the neural pathways responsible for specific camouflage and display sequences, keeping them sharp and ready through a kind of motor rehearsal that does not require waking activity. This would be adaptive in a very straightforward way and would not necessarily require anything like subjective experience to explain it. The second possibility is harder to state without certain caveats, but it deserves to be stated. The octopus may be dreaming. In vertebrates, REM sleep is associated with the consolidation of episodic memory, the replay and processing of specific events from the day's experience that forms the neural substrate of long-term memory storage. The observation that octopus active sleep patterns resemble the animal's own waking repertoire, that the skin is in some sense replaying the day, is consistent with a similar memory consolidation process. If the octopus is consolidating the specific patterns it used today in the specific contexts where it used them, then its active sleep contains something like a re-experiencing of today's events. And if it is re-experiencing today's events in some subjectively felt way, however different from our own experience, then it is doing something that deserves, cautiously, the name of dreaming.
We cannot know. The question of subjective experience in animals, of what it is like to be an octopus, or indeed whether there is anything that it is like to be an octopus, is one of the deepest and most genuinely difficult questions in all of philosophy and science. We have no way, with current or foreseeable technology, to access the subjective dimension of another animal's experience. We can only observe behavior and measure neural activity and draw inferences. But the inferences are intriguing. The octopus has a brain with 60 distinct lobes and 500 million neurons. It learns rapidly and remembers well. It has individual personality and flexible behavior. It uses tools and plans for the future. And now it appears to have a sleep cycle with a structure sufficiently similar to the vertebrate sleep cycle that the researchers who documented it described it as homologous. Not similar in a superficial way, but similar in a way that suggests common functional principles, even though octopus and vertebrate brains have been evolving separately for 500 million years. Whichever way this eventually resolves, whether the octopus's active sleep turns out to involve something like experience or not, the finding has already transformed how we think about the evolution of sleep. Sleep, in its complex two-stage form, was not invented by vertebrates. It was arrived at independently, by a completely different lineage of animals, using completely different brain structures over a different evolutionary timescale. Like the camera eye, like intelligence itself, complex sleep appears to be something that natural selection finds again and again when the conditions are right.
There is a further finding from the sleep research that deserves attention. When octopuses are deprived of active sleep, when they are gently disturbed every time they begin to enter that state, they subsequently spend more time in active sleep when they are finally allowed to sleep undisturbed and enter it more rapidly. This is the classic rebound effect seen in mammals deprived of REM sleep. The brain makes up for the deficit as soon as it can, a sign that this sleep state is not merely incidental, but genuinely necessary. The octopus needs its active sleep the way we need our dreaming. The brain insists on it. In the crevice, our octopus's skin flickers briefly with a pattern of pale cream and deep brown, a hunting approach pattern perhaps, or a camouflage sequence from the morning's exploration, and then fades again. The arms twitch once and are still. The mantle continues its slow, steady rhythm. Whatever is happening in that resting brain, it is something we are only beginning to understand. But in the presence of it, we feel perhaps a little less alone in the universe. Here is a creature that is as different from us as a living animal can be, boneless, blue-blooded, eight-armed, distributed in its intelligence, compressed into a single year of burning intensity, and yet it sleeps. It rests its brain with the same general architecture of rest that we use. It processes its day in the same general rhythm of quiet and active, consolidating and replaying. It dreams, or something very close to it. And in doing so, it joins us in something we thought was ours alone. Allow yourself to rest alongside the octopus for a few moments. Let your own body be heavy and still. Let your breath be slow and regular. The reef is very quiet now, moving only to the gentle surge of the tidal current. And somewhere in the dark of a small crevice, an octopus is cycling through the bright patterns of its day, and the night is very deep and very calm. Before we return to our octopus for the final chapter of this journey, let us spend a little time in the wider world it inhabits, the ocean as a whole, in all its vastness and complexity and beauty. Because the octopus does not exist in isolation, it is a single thread in a tapestry of extraordinary richness, and to understand it fully, we need to see the tapestry as well. The coral reef, the specific ecosystem we have been visiting throughout this journey, covers less than 1% of the ocean floor by area. And yet it supports, by most estimates, between 1/4 and 1/3 of all known marine species. It is the ocean's great paradox. Concentrated into a tiny fraction of the available space, it generates a disproportionate fraction of the total biodiversity of the sea. It is, in the metaphor favored by many ecologists, the ocean's rainforest, dense, layered, richly productive, irreplaceable. The diversity of life on a coral reef is, quite genuinely, staggering to contemplate. In a single square meter of healthy reef, you might find dozens of species of coral, each one a colonial animal composed of thousands of individual polyps, each polyp containing photosynthetic algae in its tissue that fuel the reef's growth through the energy of sunlight. In that same square meter, you might find hundreds of species of fish, from the tiny, transparent juveniles of many species that spend their early weeks in the reef's shelter, to the mature, fully colored adults of species like the angelfish and butterfly fish and triggerfish that give the reef its characteristic extravagance of visual beauty. You would find mollusks of many kinds,
clams and snails, and nudibranchs, the latter among the most spectacularly colored animals on Earth, their bodies decorated with warning patterns that signal chemical unpalatability in colors that seem almost impossibly vivid. You would find echinoderms, sea urchins with spines of delicate precision, sea stars in every size from a thumbnail to a dinner plate, feather stars draped over the coral like alien flowers, brittle stars sliding between crevices on arms so thin they seem made of wire. And threading through all of it, always, the water. The ocean is not merely the setting for this diversity, it is the medium that makes it possible, the shared substrate within which every chemical signal, every sound, every motion, every particle of food connects one organism to every other. The reef is bathed in a continuous flowing exchange of information, chemical signals that travel for hundreds of meters, pressure waves that carry the sounds of feeding and fighting and display, the slow drift of planktonic eggs and larvae that connect one reef community to another across distances of thousands of kilometers.
In this ocean, our octopus plays its specific role. It is a predator, yes, but it is also prey. The moray eel in the adjacent crevice is a significant threat. The large grouper that circles the reef crown in the morning hours has eaten octopuses before. Dolphins, when they pass through, have the intelligence and the speed to corner an octopus against the reef and extract it from any hiding place that is not entirely closed. Octopuses have even been observed being eaten, in rare cases, by other octopuses, although cannibalism is more common in captive settings where space is limited than in the wild, where escape is always possible. The octopus manages these threats with the full sophistication of its remarkable biology, but it is not, ultimately, invulnerable. No apex predator can be. The reef is a system of balance, not a fixed static balance, but a dynamic, continuously negotiated one, in which the populations of every species fluctuate around a moving average that reflects the current state of all their interactions. Beyond the reef, the ocean extends in every direction. To the west, the reef gives way to open water, the blue water domain, a world of completely different character. Here, in the open ocean, far from any reef or shore, the water column is almost entirely clear of solid structure. There is no substrate to hide against, no crevice to retreat into. The only shelter is depth, the ability to dive below the reach of the sunlight into the blue-gray twilight zone, or below that into the true dark. Open water octopus species have evolved very different solutions to the problems of survival in this featureless environment. Transparency, bioluminescence, or the extreme camouflage of the blue-tinged skin that matches the surrounding water. Above the reef, the surface. In the tropics, on a calm day, the surface is a luminous membrane through which the sunlight enters the underwater world in those long, shifting shafts of tyndall light we noticed at the beginning of our journey. Seen from below, the surface is a mirror. The undersurface of the interface between water and air reflects everything below it, so that when you look up in the shallows on a still day, you see the reef reflected perfectly above you, and the fish hanging in the water column are reflected there too, doubled and inverted, as though the world has two layers superimposed. Through the mirror, when a ripple or a wave breaks the smooth reflective surface, you catch brief glimpses of the sky above, a sudden flash of blue and light before the reflection closes over it again. From time to time, in the waters above the reef, shadows pass. Not the shadows of fish, too large, too slow, too wide. The shadows of sea turtles. 4 species of them frequent these waters, from the green turtle that grazes on the seagrass beds behind the reef to the hawksbill that specializes in eating the sponges that colonize the reef surface, to the occasional vast and ancient leatherback that passes through the open water beyond the reef on some long migration, its paddle-like flippers barely moving in the energy-efficient swimming stroke of an animal that may travel 40,000 kilometers in a year. Sea turtles have been swimming in the world's oceans for more than 100 million years. They predate the extinction of the non-avian dinosaurs, predate the rise of the grasses, predate the first primates by tens of millions of years. To watch a sea turtle is to watch something genuinely ancient, something whose lineage memory, if it had one, would encompass a stretch of time that the human imagination can barely touch. And yet, here it is, in the same water as our octopus, navigating the same reef by the same sunlight, real and immediate and present. From somewhere far out in the blue water, a sound arrives. Low, resonant, rising and falling in a complex, sustained pattern that persists for minutes. The song of a humpback whale. Whale song is composed of a hierarchical series of units, individual notes combined into phrases, combined into themes, combined into the full song, and it can carry in the deep sound channel of the ocean for hundreds of kilometers. The male humpbacks that sing are engaged in a continuous population-level musical dialogue, their songs converging and diverging over weeks and months as each whale picks up and transmits the evolving pattern to others in the population. The song of a humpback whale is perhaps the longest-range communication signal produced by any non-human animal. It is sound as geography, as community, as identity. The octopus, in its crevice, does not hear this song the way we hear music, but the pressure waves of the whale's voice travel through the water and are registered by the octopus's statocysts, those fluid-filled balance organs, as a low, sustained vibration, a gentle trembling of the water around it. It is not music to the octopus, but it is a signal. And in the octopus's world, signals are everything.
The reef also hums and clicks and pops and crackles with biological sound. The snapping shrimp, small crustaceans that produce an intense percussive sound by rapidly closing a specialized claw, are perhaps the most significant contributors to the ambient soundscape of the shallow reef. A healthy reef snaps and crackles continuously, like a fire burning slowly. And it is now known that many animals use these soundscapes for orientation, that fish larvae drifting in the plankton are drawn toward the sounds of a healthy reef, using the acoustic signature to navigate toward the habitat they need to settle into. The sounds of the reef tell the stories of its health. Where the reef sounds are muted or absent, it often means the reef is damaged, that the snapping shrimp and fish and other vocal organisms have declined, that bleaching or pollution or overfishing has reduced the community to a fraction of its former richness. The silence of a dead reef is one of the most melancholy sounds in the ocean, the acoustic signature of absence. Our octopus will never know the human words for any of this. It will never frame its life in the terms we have been using. It will not know that it is ancient or intelligent or beautiful. It will simply be what it is, completely and without self-consciousness, navigating its small corner of the reef with the full power of its remarkable biology for as long as that biology persists. It will hunt and hide and learn and dream and eventually attend its eggs and die. But here, now, in the deep of the night, it is dreaming its bright dreams, and the reef breathes around it, and the turtles sleep at the surface, and the whale sings its long dispersing song into the dark water, and everything is as it should be, and the ocean goes on and on in every direction, patient and immense and full.
We have come a long way together, you and I. We began in the first pale light of ocean dawn, watching an octopus uncurl from its crevice into the morning. We followed it through the growing light of the reef, learning the architecture of its extraordinary body, the 3 hearts pumping blue blood, the donut brain wrapped around the throat, the 500 million neurons distributed through 8 intelligent arms. We watched its skin become the reef around it,
learns the physics of chromatophores and iridophores and the strange solution of chromatic aberration that allows a colorblind animal to match color perfectly. We descended through the different worlds of the ocean, from shallow sunny reef to cold kelp forest to mesopelagic twilight to the absolute dark of the abyss, meeting the different octopus species that have made each world their home. We watched the octopus think and solve and play and plan. We followed its arms through the reef at dusk, learning the chemistry of its hunt and the elegance of its defenses. We sat with the knowledge of its brief, complete, self-sacrificing life, and we watched it dream. Now it is late. The reef is at its quietest. The predators that hunt by night are themselves winding down, full or resting. The stars above the surface are at their most brilliant. The water is very still. Let your body be still too. Let the weight of your body settle into whatever is beneath you. Let your muscles relax the last small tensions they are holding, in your shoulders, in your jaw, in the space between your eyebrows. You have been carrying all of that today, and you can put it down now. The day is over. The reef is resting. The octopus in its crevice is cycling through its bright, brief dreams. Let us spend these final minutes not learning anything new, but simply being present with what we have already learned. Let the images drift through your mind without any particular effort to hold them or order them. The reef at dawn, the shifting skin, the blue blood, the three hearts, the coconut octopus walking across the sand with its treasures, the mother in her den tending her eggs in the dark, the dreaming octopus flickering through its day.
There is a word in Japanese, mono no aware, that has no single English translation. It refers, roughly, to the bittersweet awareness of impermanence, the particular quality of emotion that arises when you are fully present with something beautiful while simultaneously aware that it is temporary. Cherry blossoms are the archetypal example in Japanese culture. They are beautiful, and they are beautiful partly because they last for such a short time, and the awareness of their brevity is part of the experience of their beauty, not separate from it. The octopus, with its 1 year of burning intensity, its complete and self-contained arc of life, seems to me the perfect marine equivalent of this feeling. It is beautiful, completely and in itself, and it is brief. And those two facts are not in tension with each other. They are, perhaps, the same fact viewed from two different angles. In the scientific literature, there is a speculation that I find both audacious and touching, and I want to share it with you as we approach the end of our journey. In one of the popular science treatments of cephalopod intelligence, drawing on the genuine scientific findings about the octopus's cognitive abilities, its lifespan, its evolutionary trajectory, a researcher made the following observation. If octopuses had evolved longer lifespans, if the semoparous reproductive strategy that kills them after a single reproductive event had not become fixed in their lineage, they might have had the time to develop, across generations of learning and cultural transmission, something like a civilization. The intelligence is there, the tool use is there, the individual problem solving, the social recognition, the memory and learning, all of it is there. What is missing is time. A creature that lives for 1 year cannot build on what previous generations built, cannot pass knowledge to offspring in the way that longer-lived, more social animals can. Each octopus begins again, almost from scratch. It is a reminder that intelligence alone is not sufficient for civilization. Time is also required. Cultural transmission is required. The ability to build on what came before, to inherit knowledge, to stand on the shoulders of those who came before. This is what transforms individual intelligence into something larger than itself. The octopus has the first requirement and lacks the second. It is, in this view, one of nature's most poignant examples of potential held within constraint. But perhaps there's another way to see it. Perhaps the octopus's life is not constrained by its brevity, but completed by it. Perhaps to live intensely, fully, without reserve for a single year, to be entirely present in every moment of that year, to learn everything your nervous system can absorb, to hunt with total skill and hide with total perfection, and attend your eggs with total devotion, and then to let go, is not a lesser life, but a different kind of completeness. One that we, with our decades and our accumulations and our long-term planning, sometimes struggle to achieve. There is no conclusion to draw from this, only a feeling to hold lightly as you drift towards sleep. The feeling of something beautiful and brief and complete, going on right now in the dark water of the ocean, far from wherever you are lying. 8 arms and 3 hearts and blue blood and bright dreams. A creature unlike anything else on Earth, doing exactly what it has evolved to do, completely and without hesitation, in the dark of the reef. Let your breathing slow. The ocean is very large and very deep and very old. It was here before the first animal crawled onto land. It will be here after the last one returns. And in it, right now, hundreds of species of octopus are going about their ancient lives in the dark, hunting, hiding, learning, dreaming. The giant Pacific octopus in the cold kelp forests of the North Pacific is returning from a night's hunting, its massive arms laden with the results. The glass octopus in the twilight zone is drifting with barely a movement, transparent and invisible, its upward-pointing eyes scanning the faint glow above. The Dumbo octopus in the abyss is fluttering its small fins in the absolute dark, patient and unhurried, moving with the calm of something that has never needed speed. And somewhere in a tropical reef, perhaps in the Indo-Pacific, perhaps in the Mediterranean, perhaps in the warm, shallow waters near where you are sleeping right now, a common octopus is in its crevice, its skin pale and still, its arms arranged loosely around it, cycling through the active sleep of its dreaming. Let yourself drift with it. The waves above the surface move in long, slow sets, not crashing, not urgent, just the rhythmic rise and fall of the ocean's breathing. The sound of it, if you could hear it, would be the lowest, most continuous note, not music exactly, but the sound beneath music, the sound that all music is built on, the sound of something vast and continuous and indifferent to time. Below that surface, in the dark, the reef continues. The coral polyps extend their feeding tentacles. The parrotfish sleep in their mucus cocoons. The moray eels patrol their territories in slow, serpentine progress. The sea turtle, somewhere above, sleeps at the surface with its nose just barely above the water, one breath every few hours sufficient for a metabolic rate slowed by cold water and stillness. And in the crevice, the octopus sleeps. Its skin pulses softly, one last cascade of color, pale gold fading to cream, fading to the softest gray-white, like the last light leaving a sky after sunset. Then, still. The reef is still. The ocean is still. You are still. Everything that needed to happen today has happened. Everything you needed to carry has been carried. Everything that needed to be put down can be put down now, here, in the quiet of this moment, in the company of the dreaming octopus and the breathing reef and the vast, patient, ancient ocean. Sleep now. The water is warm. The light is gone. The reef holds everything gently, the way the ocean has always held everything, without effort, without preference, with an acceptance so complete that it asks nothing of you except your presence. You are present. That is enough. The octopus dreams, the ocean breathes, the stars move slowly overhead on the other side of the surface.
and the night goes on, deep and soft and full of life in every direction as far as the water reaches, which is everywhere.